Hello and welcome to another edition of EntheoRadio, where we talk about shamanism and consciousness for healing purposes. This is your captain speaking, Captain Hugh T Alkemi, and I'm excited to welcome a very special guest and author today. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And Dawn Bauman Brunke is an author, animal communicator, and dream enthusiast. She has written 9 books about connecting with deeper levels, connecting at deeper levels with animals, nature, spirit, and self. She has also designed a tarot deck. Dawn's books include Animal Voices, Animal Teachings, The Key to Spirit Animals, The Animal Wisdom Tarot, Awakening the Ancient Power of the Snake, Dreaming with Polar Bears, and her latest, Shadow Animals. You can read many chapters and excerpts from her books at animalvoices.net. Dawn lives in Alaska and is coming to us from there. She lives with her husband and her dog, Deshka.
Right.
And maybe we'll hear that dog in the background.
Fingers crossed you don't, but you might.
But not the husband. He's quiet, huh?
Yeah, he's quiet.
That's good. Well, thank you for joining me. Oh my gosh, we read this book. My son and I read this over the summer. And
Oh,
then
good.
and then that new book, which you see a poster in the background,
Yeah, here
and
it
she's
is.
got it in her
Send me your
hands.
copy.
I
Yeah.
just started reading that this month, and I got excited about it, sharing the section on the birds
Mm-hmm.
and the dark aspects of birds with some of my friends while they were, I think they were probably lightly coming back from a mushroom journey, and so I was just reading to them, and they got kind of interested in the book itself for the and I always like to describe it as the balance of the light and the dark,
Yeah.
the power that the shadow animals offer us.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe you
That's
can
really
speak to
why.
your
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask if you could speak to your reasons for writing about the shadow animals.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, yeah. Kind of my main, as you mentioned, one of my last books was Awakening the Ancient Power of Snake. And while I was working with that book, Snake came to me as really such a incredible teacher. And I was fascinated how in the past, Snake was very much honored and, was kind of a mentor to gods and goddesses and royalty and was really connected with wisdom and how it kind of degenerated through the ages. And now we have, for the most part, and I'm just speaking very generally, kind of a very a negative attitude towards snakes, and we don't understand the full journey. And so the writing of that book was really tracing the history of the snake and really learning more about the snake. And what I came away with was that snake was an incredible shadow animal. And what I mean by that is an animal that really kind of challenges us to see um, the darker parts of ourselves. Now, darker not as in bad, but the parts that we have kind of repressed. Maybe
Yeah.
we should talk about what the shadow is first. In psychological terms, it's all that hidden repressed parts of ourselves that we prefer not to look at. So shame, guilt, arrogance, weakness, stuff like that. We don't like that ego deflating aspect of self. So we kind of hide it away deep in the psyche, in the basement of our being, huh?
Yeah.
So the shadow holds all those parts of ourselves that we judge or disown. Our secret fears, our repressed emotions, our dark beliefs, all those parts of ourselves that we've kind of exiled.
Mhm.
And well, let me just go on about shadow a little bit, if that's all right, and then
Please
I'll
do,
turn it
yeah.
around. Okay, yeah. So what's fascinating is that we all create shadow very early in our lives. We as little children kind of learn to highlight what our parents or our teachers want to see. So that cheerful, smart, obedient self, right? And we kind of learn to put away those parts of ourselves that are deep bad or not so good. So the moody self, the lazy self, the disobedient, rebellious self, things like that. The poet Robert Bly calls this the long bag we drag behind us. And I just
Hmm.
love that visual, because we keep putting in that bag all that we judge as inappropriate or wrong. And this continues throughout our entire life. As little children in grade school, high school, we do this with our friends, with our spouses, with whatever groups we're kind of involved in. And we each have our own personal shadow, and we have collective shadows. So a certain group is going to have a collective, what they deem inappropriate or not good, or what they want to repress, and that's going to be their shadow content. So I wrote the book, and I guess I should also talk about how shadow comes out. The more we ignore, why is it important, right? Maybe that's a good place for it. Well, the more we ignore or repress our shadow, the more it kind of clamors for our attention. It asks to be seen because the shadow is part of who we are. It's that part of our psyche that is part of us, but for whatever reason, we repressed it. And if we don't deal with what's in that long bag we drag behind us, the shadow tends to sneak out. So we may subconsciously project our shadow onto other people, onto other things. Instead of acknowledging those things that we don't like in ourselves, we kind of unwittingly fling them outward onto friends, onto family, onto the government. That's always a good one. Other races, other countries. And we also do that to animals.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I realized the better that we understand the animals we fear or dislike, the more we can learn about what we unconsciously fear or dislike in ourselves. So, and animals are kind of, I think, a really good practical way of going about this, because it's difficult to see our shadow. Why? Because we don't want to see it, right? So animals have long time been teachers to humans, guides, protectors. And I think for many people, an animal teacher or guide does feel safe. And so the shadow animals are the ones that can help us kind of protect us and guide us to find those aspects of self that we've hidden away. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so because you've written so many books, and it sounds like you have many years of experience in shamanism, can you speak to your first shadow experiences and when and why you sought that out for yourself in your own practice?
Well, I'll tell you an interesting story about a shadow animal. And sometimes shadow animals come to us, huh?
Okay.
So one of the stories I share in the book was when I was about 9 years old. I went with my sister and my mom to visit one of my mom's friends. She lived several hours away, so we were going to spend the night, and we had a really nice time. And the woman had cats. She had 3 cats. I was always a dog person. I always loved dogs. Cats, I didn't dislike cats, but they just, they were cats.
Yeah.
Right. So after spending the night, I got up early. For some reason, I was craving a glass of milk. I went downstairs, and there, sitting in front of the refrigerator, was the eldest cat. And it was a gorgeous cat. It was a gray cat with these bright green eyes, and it was looking at me. And it was looking at me in a particular way, like it was looking into me, kind of in a very specific way. And I remember being very unsettled by that. And it was kind of a blur, but I remember running up the stairs, the cat's at my heels, jumping on my mom's bed. The cat never touched me. The cat, and it was one of those incidents that later on you kind of laugh about it, like, oh, Don's afraid of cats, right? Well, I wasn't afraid of cats, and I didn't dislike that cat either. It was just a kind of a funny incident. And at 9 years old, I didn't think this was my shadow animal, huh? But a week later, after that event, I developed an allergy to cats. All of a sudden, if I saw a cat, my eyes would get red. If I touched it, I would start sneezing. I just developed this intense allergy towards cats. And so if I ever touched a cat, I had to wash my hands immediately, or I'd go into full-blown response like that, allergic response. And so for many years, decades actually, or at least 15 years, let's say, I just avoided cats. Again, I didn't dislike them really. I just avoided them. And so I think looking back now, I think that cat was a shadow animal. And then and when I was in college, I had a dream about cats. And it was about a specific cat. It was a cat sitting on the top of a refrigerator, had a little hat on, and it was looking at me in a very particular way, not in a threatening way, not in a imposing way, but in a specific way. And I had a series of dreams over a number of years of this cat just looking at me, being very silent, looking at me, looking into me. And I began to think about that earlier incident and tie it together and think about, what was it in that cat? What did that cat perceive in me, huh? What don't I want to perceive in myself?
Yeah.
What did I fear so much that my body responded, right, with an allergy? And the more I worked with cat in dreams, the more cat became really a very profound animal guide and animal teacher. So that's an example of how a shadow animal, can come to us. And I mean, I think I was lucky because cat was not um, um, affecting me in a very uh, what do I want to say, way that upset me a whole lot. It was
Hmm.
offering me kind of a graceful way of opening to it and of learning its teaching. In fact, one of the things Kat said to me later on is, we teach by being, so by being respectful and by being waiting, we allow you to wait to open and at your own rate, huh?
Yeah.
So there we go. There we go. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's say to kind of dovetail on that, we those of us with very intense animals, say a great white shark, or mine's an orca, for example, how do we commune with these things without having the level of intensity uh, that these in real life, if you encountered them, would have if we're looking to unrepress or to discover aspects of ourselves? Whereas cat does feel like a lot less dangerous than, say, a viper
Mhm.
or a big crocodile or something, whatever people's shadow animals are.
Right. Well, and shadow animals are individual, just like we have our own, bag of shadow stuff. For me, a cat, another person, a cat is just a wonderful, lovey thing, and they love cats. And how could cat be a shadow animal? And for that person, it's not. Right. And for me, I didn't have cat as a menacing figure. It wasn't a tiger. It wasn't, some intense, menacing animal. It was a little sweet gray cat with beautiful green eyes, but it was still a shadow animal to me because it held something that was connected to my deep psyche, huh?
Yeah.
So if you have, for example, an animal guide as a whale or a shark, or if you have a good feeling to that, that's not necessarily your shadow animal, right? That can be an animal teacher. That can be, and we can connect with animals in so many different ways, even if we're not around them. Meditating with that animal, doing a shamanic journey with that animal, talking with that animal, daydreaming with that animal. So there's all kinds of aspects and ways we can get into it. So my short answer to your question is, it's really individual. It really
Yeah.
depends on the person, right? Yeah.
Okay. I think there was a section on. So I want to circle back to polar bears as both a light and dark animals, and something you use for lucidity. But I also wanted to talk a little bit more about that book. And there was a section on creepy crawlies, right?
In the shadow animal book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a section on insects. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I think for a lot of people in our culture now, because we've tried to obliterate that aspect of life, that walk of life, by poisoning so much of our environment, especially as kids, when we encounter the creepy crawlies, uh, it can be traumatic. Like a bee sting is almost always something I hear about childhood trauma related to a bee sting. Oh my gosh, I could be allergic. I don't know. And then for me out in Arizona, scorpions is a big one. Maybe you could speak to spiders and scorpions and creepy crawlies
As being shadow animals?
as being shadow animals and how to maybe
Yeah.
work with them. Because in the traditions that I belong to, and some of the ayahuasca shamanism traditions, those are used for cursing. Like you would send the energy in the shape, in the form of an animal, creepy crawly with venom, and that would be a curse. Like so you'd throw a
Hmm.
spider at someone, for example.
Hmm. Well, let's deal with spiders, because spiders, that's one of our oldest phobias, oldest human phobias, and it's like, I remember reading a report that up to one third of all humans have a fear of spiders, right? Um, And there's a lots of irrational fears connected with that. I started reading some about the phobias, like it's going to creep in my nose, it's going to drop in my mouth, it's going to bite and kill me, this teeny little thing, right? So it is a learned phobia. I think most phobias are, and it comes from our culture, our family beliefs, and experience. So if you were bit by a spider and you had an allergic reaction, then you're going to have, it's going to become compounded unless your parents are kind of grounded enough to talk to you about spider and educate you about spider and kind of dispel that fear about spider, huh? And really a lot of, I think, shadow animal work, that's what it is. It's shifting your fear to fascination. So it's learning about the animal, right? So that's one of the things I recommend is when you are working with a shadow animal, the first thing I would say is to journal about it. Really write down, what are your specific fears about it? Where do you feel creepy about the creepy crawly in your body? What does it feel like? Write that down, because that's going to give you good clues later on about how we hold. Some people freeze up, other people want to run away. Where is that hold or that tension in your body? And then I think it's really important to, okay, you get that out, get that on paper. And now we're going to think about spider itself, not your feelings about spider, but spider as an animal. So I think a next good step would be to research spider, to learn about spider, and really allow curiosity to guide you. Maybe you discover that spiders have been around Earth for, I think it's like 400 million years. That's quite a long time, right? And they've evolved in so many different ways. Some of them are master architects. Some of them are divers. They go in water, they create little bubbles. They're amazing weavers and engineers. So they're incredibly diverse, incredibly accomplished. They're all predators, and they all know exactly how to get what they want. I think there's about 50,000 species of spiders, maybe it's 49,000 species, but there's only a very small amount that are venomous enough to even harm a human. And when we start looking at our fears, you're you're 5 times more likely to die from a dog attack than you are from a spider bite.
Yeah.
Whoa, that sort of puts things in perspective, huh? You
Yeah.
know? So that research, I think, is really good. Learning about the animal, getting a sense of what it is, divorced from our ideas and our opinions about it. Then I would say go into myth, go into legend. How did our ancestors view spider? Because, kind of the myths and legends, they're like our collective dreams, right? And what was the wisdom that has been passed on throughout the ages about spider? So, the one that comes to mind is the master weaver, huh? They produce these magical silken threads from their body, and they join one to another and create this amazing pattern net. Some people call it the universal tapestry of life. It's the cosmic design. In the Native American realm, it's grandmother spider, huh? Who
Yeah.
spins this web of life. Yeah. So you look at all that. Spider is also a keeper of words. In some myths, spider is the one that creates the original alphabet on the web. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So
Kind of
the
like
more
Charlotte's
you,
Web.
yeah, the more you read, you're right, that too. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably where Evie White got the idea, because there's a very old mythic or a legend about spider being the keeper of words and producing this primordial alphabet on the web and teaching humans how to record their thoughts and pass them on.
Interesting.
So so we have that. So you see what you're doing. You're starting to collect all this body of information. What are spiders' gifts? Spider reminds us that we're all part of the web of creation, and as such, because spider is so ancient, we can also, by virtue of those threads, connect to ancient wisdom. And so there's something in there. I think spider teaches us how to spin our thought webs, our dreams, our creations, our plans, to bring us what we need.
Yeah.
Then I would say, like a spider, throw out some foundational threads. Throw out your fear again and watch what form it takes. So watch where we talked about the beginning of the journal, writing down your fears, where you felt it. Maybe you ask yourself, what threads do I need to connect here, huh? What's the pattern of my past? What's the design of life that I want to create? So spider starts to bring together, the more we go in, this, and it could be any animal, the more we ask questions like these, kind of deep questions, of what our fear is and what this animal brings us, the more we kind of pull up that which is hidden, that which is forgotten, that which is judged or disowned. In other words, our shadow. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how these animals help bring this information to our consciousness. And then once that's there, we can work with it in a more conscious way.
So maybe you could speak to the relationship between fear and power. For a lot of people in shamanism, these two things are connected. And I've been advising people, students and friends, to look at fear as more of a compass. Is it a membrane? Can we press through it? What's on the other side of fear?
Yeah, that's a really good, I like that idea and that question too, because I mean, fear is a barometer of sorts, right? Sometimes we need to be fearful because we need to get out of there. Sometimes fear is self-generated. And so sometimes it would help us to move through that fear and kind of dissolve that fear so that we can come out on the other side and find our power. So is that kind of how you see it too?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like fear is a representation of lost aspects of power. Again, the way that the shadow is also this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And we have to think about right timing, huh?
Yeah,
Because even I don't advise everybody to bring their shadow back right away, right? There's some stuff that is there, like let's say a trauma or an abused self that needs time to come out and needs time to kind of, we don't just go in there and grab it and abduct it, the same with fear. There's times like when fear really is appropriate and we need to honor fear and realize, okay, we need to step back. Yeah. And then other times we go with it. So yeah, there's not a set answer there, huh? It's kind of where you
it's
are with it.
yeah, it's a kind of an exploratory, unique answer. I kind of want to go back onto the topic of curses and what your relationship or knowledge in shamanism might be towards curses, because animals are often used as energy patterns that people send out. People sometimes, even in the Native American, North American tradition, they'll dance with an animal spirit. And this brings in power, and it can be used for healing, as we've been discussing, but it can also be used for harming. Have you encountered that a lot, or you studied it much?
I don't have a lot of familiarity with that. And the way I deal with shadow animals in my book is it is about healing. It's not about harming. It's about animals that help us find, um, it could be selves that have harmed in the past, but really reclaiming shadow material in order to be more aware of it, in order to integrate it, and in order to heal ourselves, in order to be more expansive in ourselves. So I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with that area of what you're speaking here, so I can't comment too much on it.
Sure. Would you also possibly, from your perspective, describe whether or not curses can affect a person who is in their power? Is it that simply connecting to your spirit animals, connecting to your dreaming self, unrepressing yourself, and being in fullness of your power would prevent? It would be like a shield. I suppose it would be that your aura would be impervious, and some people even say that the shadow is the only one that can actually accept the curse, accept the negativity, and
Yeah,
everything
I just
sneaks
don't
in
have a
through the shadow.
background in this, so I just don't know. And I personally don't send out curses to people, so
Right.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
You
Sorry, I
all
just,
right.
it's just not my area of expertise.
I
Yeah.
feel I feel like there's a lot of jealousy amongst different practitioners of shamanism, and
Hmm.
when you get into these power paths, there is even like in the teachings of Don Juan, where they talk about like brujarissimo and curanderisimo and stuff in the Toltec traditions, supposedly, they're dealing with competition from other shamans, other people who maybe want to steal their reputation or steal their power, or if it's even possible. So these are things that, in at least the forms of dream interpretation that I do, I consider. I consider whether or not things are internal or external energy patterns. and where, what's the source of the energy pattern, and how is it flowing? Is it flowing through my shadow? Is my shadow the filter? Is it filtering it for the positive, or is it filtering it for the negative, for the harder lessons? But
there you go. You answered your question.
so so you do a lot of work with dreaming,
Yeah.
and maybe you could speak to lucidity and possible interpretation of animals and dreams.
Sure. I mean, so let's just say lucid dreaming is dreaming that you're awake within your dreams. In other words, you know that you're dreaming, and it's a special quality of dreaming, of being aware. So, man, this is such a kind of a big question because we can work with animals in dreams. Well, my polar bear book, for example, that was a special type of dreaming where I had a relationship with a living polar bear that was also dreaming, and we shared dreams, lucid dreams as well as dreams, symbolic dreams, right?
Hmm.
And so that was very much, I would say, that was more about relationship than it was about the dreaming. The dreaming was the vehicle. The dreaming was the way that we were able to meet our consciousnesses, meet our actually, areas of our psyche, and connect and create together. Yeah. So, dreaming of animals, again, it depends on the individual, on what animal you're dreaming with. Is this animal coming as a guide, as a teacher? For example, the dream I talked about before about the cat, I feel like that was an animal teacher, and it was coming not with a big long schedule or a bunch of information. It was just sitting there waiting. It was observing me. Are you ready to open to that? Are you ready to open to this teaching? So I think sometimes animal teachers do come in our dreams, and they're kind of testing us. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but in a way of, are you ready for this teaching? So maybe a shadow animal comes. Let's say it's bear. And are you afraid of bear? How do you feel? Do you run away in the dream, or are you able to look at bear? And I did share a number of other dreams I had with other bears in that polar bear book, and I've dreamt about bears for a very long time. And I remember one dream I had where I was actually running from a bear, and then I froze. And I thought, if I freeze, that bear won't see me. But the bear came close to me and did see me. And in that moment, something happened, and I embraced the bear.
Hmm.
So a shift happened, a healing happened, a relationship began with that. So, dreams are so individual, and we really need to go with where you are in your dream. And I don't know if I could even give you an overall arch about dreaming with animals, other than it's great.
Yeah.
It's usually great, and usually every animal brings to you a specific teaching or a specific aspect of I think of wisdom, that you can open up to in a deeper way, by doing some dream work, doing some meditation, by going back into the dream, for example, and learning more about why did that animal appear, and what does it bring to me? Yeah.
Absolutely. So when it comes to these books, let's actually, I kind of want to segue to the tarot too.
Mhm.
You're not just using the animals themselves for visionary work and for dream work, but you're also kind of looking for messages. And so you made a tarot deck that is a form of divination, just as some dream interpretations are forms of divination.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
speak to getting the answers, looking for the answers, and how somebody starts to learn and interpret the answers? I know that it's possible to do it for yourself, and everyone's unique, but maybe there's guides other than just the books. Maybe there's techniques that you learned that got you to this place.
Yeah, my best tip, I think, is it's sort of like what I was saying before about how do we find our shadow animals. I mean, I've written books about, what this animal kind of means, or what its
Hmm.
teachings are. But I would say before you even look at any of those books is write down or consider, what does this animal mean to me? That's going to be your deepest wisdom. And I think if you can, it's sort of our culture. We're like, we always want to find an answer out there, Google it, right? Rather than just sitting with it for a minute, going within. what
Hmm.
does alligator mean to me? What does it mean that I dreamt of this alligator? What do I feel about alligators? Is it the way that they're kind of sneaky? Is it the way that they live under the water? Is it that they're so old? What is it that really speaks to me? And really kind of take some time to ponder and simmer that information, because that's going to give you your gold. And then after you do that, then you can go out and research and learn about alligators and myth and legend. And, it kind of fleshes it all out, It gives you a bigger thing. And then go back to your journal. What is it that, now that I know all this, what do I need to ask alligator? What wisdom does alligator have for me? And you can do that with any animal.
So what you're saying is sit with it, journal about it, and then do a little bit of research, and then kind of come back.
Legends, and then come back. Always bring it back to self, because where is that shadow? It's in yourself. It's not out there.
Right.
Right.
It's treating ourselves as if we are the sun, or the I guess, like in astrology, you can kind of see yourself as the heliocentric universe, or the ego, the sun in the universe, and you're casting shadow from the center point. And so there's power all around that.
Well, and to tie that into tarot, with what you were asking before, is like, it's the same with tarot. A card can mean one thing to one person and something completely different to somebody else. It depends where it is in the reading. It depends who that individual is, what they're asking about. So I think of tarots as little mini dream cards. We're looking into it, and we are kind of projecting, and we're getting back the wisdom that we need, or the answer that we need, or the healing that we need, whatever it is. Yeah.
So there's this interesting thing with tarot. I read with a few animals decks. I've read tarot for many years, and one of my tarot decks, I think, is like it's the Animals Divine deck, and Lisa Hunt, I think, made that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like the grandmother spider weaver as the hanged woman card.
Yeah.
What's your hanged man and hanged woman card?
What is the hanged man? Oh, why am I not thinking of it? The hanged man is, let me look real quick here.
Yeah.
This is my deck, Animal Wisdom Throw. Actually, they redid it. It's the spirit animal right now. I don't know why publishers always want to.
They like redoing things. Renewal.
Yeah. The hanged man or hanged woman. What number is that? Is the number?
I think it's 12 for most decks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, bat.
Oh,
Master of Suspension.
That is a great choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is. It's about, it's about kind of going within. I modeled my cards. I mean, I'm a Rider Waite person, so I used a lot of those ideas. And so bat is, and that card, the Hangman, really is about kind of being upside down, being in an inverted position, going within and waiting, and you're hanging out, in that card, in that traditional view of that card and what that is. Yeah.
I was also thinking the connection to the Hanged Man and Odin, who's in mythology hung from a tree and gives us language. And then before you were talking about Charlotte's Web and the spider's connection to hanging and giving us letters. It's kind of neat that there's all that. So we didn't really even talk about your upbringing and your background in shamanism. Could you give us a synopsis?
I don't really have a background in shamanism per se. I didn't study with anybody, and I didn't, I think in fact, I never took a class as an animal communicator. A lot of my work, or dreaming, a lot of my work just comes organically, naturally, kind of from, I did a lot of reading in college and afterwards. And, but yeah, I don't have a particular background in shamanism.
Interesting. So you didn't train with like Michael Harner or any of the foundations for shamanism?
No.
Self-initiated.
Would have been fun, but no, I just didn't. No.
Wow. Okay. So tell me, as an animal communicator, because I'm not really sure what that is, what do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So as an animal communicator, I'm basically a translator. So I'm connecting with an animal. Let's say your dog. I don't know. Do you have an animal at home?
I have a tarantula.
A tarantula. So
four bearded dragons.
Okay. So
And
let's say the
yeah,
tarantula, because we've talked about spider before. So I'd be connecting with the energy of that tarantula. And I would be seeing it, feeling it, feeling its physicalness, emotions. Some animals are really good at, so they'll kind of give me a little download of, in human talk of what they're going through. Dogs and cats, especially. Spiders are a little different because uh, they don't follow our day-to-day routines as much as a dog and a cat would, right? So my short answer is I'm basically connecting with the energy of that animal, and I am translating its thoughts, feelings, energies into English.
hmm,
And I'm kind of doing a three-way talk, the person, the animal, and me. And a lot of times people come with specific behavioral issues, or, an animal's nearing the end of its life. How is it feeling? Things like that. Some people come, my favorite people are the ones who say, I just want to know more about my animal. And that's always really fun because it's wide open. And animals have a lot to tell us. Are we willing to listen? That's the question.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like the tarantula and our relationship is discussing anxiousness and fear right now. And the last time
Hmm.
I fed her, I'm going to refer to her as a her because I'm hopeful that she'll live a little longer if she's female, but might not be female. I don't know. I haven't gendered it. But she lifted up like this with her arms up, and I had put the crickets in the cage, and I went to close the cage, and it was like, wait, oh, hey, it was. She was excited about eating, but at the same time, she wanted to show that she was bigger and had her arms up. And when tarantulas do that, they kind of are ready to bite. And I'm just like,
Mm.
huh, what can I do to support the safety feelings around my relationship as the keeper for this tarantula animal? Have any feelings?
I think if it was me, I would probably sit with that tarantula for a while and just share energy, not with a sense of giving or necessarily receiving, but the sense of sharing energy or merging energy. Again, I wouldn't be heavy-handed about it with spider. I feel your spider's kind of delicate. There's a delicateness about her. Um, that's what I sense through you. So I think I would start with just sitting with spider and being open, seeing where it takes you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you sit with your spider?
Less lately, but
Yeah, I think it'd be really
yeah.
helpful. It would be really helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I usually will have dreams about my animals when they need something, and this one has been less vocal than my last group of tarantulas. So I will do that. You're gonna love this. So I live in Mesa, Arizona, and we have like a food forest. And so we got four bearded dragons. I have a toad, tarantula, and then we breed cockroaches to feed to the bearded dragon. So we have like 1,000 cockroaches all the time. And I don't want to feed the Madagascar hissing cockroaches because they're so unique. They like kind of look around. They seem like more intelligent cockroaches. So I try not to feed those. And that's a spirit. I guess that's a spirit animal for me because I've always had like things that would eat cockroaches, and I always found that cockroaches ate whatever scraps leftovers that I had, so it was really easy to keep them.
Yeah. Cockroaches are just amazing survivors, aren't they? They're
Yeah.
so tough and they have so many. That was one of the animals I did in the insect chapter because I was just really fascinated with why we dislike cockroaches so much when um, they're such survivors and they have so many kind of gifts that we kind of brush away as a cockroach, and the ew factor, and you know that's just kind of superficial. I think a lot of what my book is about asking, are you willing to go a little deeper with that? Are you willing to go a little deeper than the superficial ew factor, or I don't like spiders, or it's really kind of coming down into yourself, sitting with yourself a little bit more and learning about cockroaches or
Mhm.
tarantulas or whatever it is. They don't have to be your best buddy, but if you have a fear about them, they're telling you something.
Sure. My feeling is the messages from the spider. The reason why I adopted the spider is because I wanted to weave and connect to more people and through
Mm.
through the web, the sacred web of communication and relations. And then the other insects that I keep, specifically the cockroaches, it tends to be, I feel like, sign of the times. We've come so far into the projected lack of sustainability as a culture here, at least in the United States where I live. And we are like cockroaches, feeding off of, in a non-sustainable way, the environment. But I know that that's sort of just an illusion. Like we could be sustainable within years if we all just decided to do that. And cockroaches teach me so much about adaptability. Like they're just
Yeah.
so ready for change.
Yeah. They're very smart, actually. And they're very adaptable. Yeah. Yeah. What's
And
really interesting is when I was reading about them, I got onto the websites of some people, entomologists, who loved cockroaches, and you just read about it from their perspective. It's a completely different view of insects and cockroaches, especially. And it's the same with rats. I did a chapter on rats, and there's people who live with rats who just love them and will tell you they're incredibly clean animals and they're very clever. And we have all these projections on rats, right? Rats kind of a good collective shadow animal for the West, because we generally don't like rats. We think they're dirty. We are appalled by how rapidly they reproduce. But all of that is a reflection of
yeah,
ourselves. What kind
yeah.
of garbage do we throw away without thinking? And so there's just a lot there of I mean, again, that's why I wrote the book. By looking at what you really bothers you out there, you can learn a lot about yourself, right?
So that's fun. Maybe we could do a little bit of a analysis on the modern American ideals and some of the different national ideals as they take on animals as part of their symbology. Like we have this eagle, and we've discussed it on my show before with Itzhak Beery, and he discusses the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, which is basically the representation of North and South America. And the prophecy suggested that at this time, North and South America, they would share energy and communicate and be in relationship, and thus the skies were shared by both condor and eagle.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole concept of eagle is like one of the, and maybe you elaborated it on quite a bit on the birds chapter or the winged ones chapter, because you talked about the Birds movie and how that was sort of like a scary movie, and it's still like in the noosphere of consciousness. And then of course we have all these people. I think our country is pretty heavily involved in war with the eagle, and then I think there's a double-headed eagle for Russia, isn't there?
Oh, I thought you meant a real. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think that is.
It's on their money. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's on their flag.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that concept of the eagle as this sort of predatory bird, and what is it saying about us culturally as I almost want to call us warmongers?
If the phrase fits,
It's
Well,
just
we do. We do have again, I'm going to speak very generally, but we do have kind of an aggressive culture about war and about getting what you want and being the best and about being the brightest and I think the shadow of that is a reluctance to go deep. So we tend to be a little bit of a superficial culture in general. Again, there's many people who are deep, many thinkers and artists and stuff. But yeah, so if you are all about the eagle, all about the solar aspects of the eagle shining bright, what's your shadow? Well, your shadow is to win at all costs. We don't care about the people below us. We don't care about them. There's a lot of othering in that whole scenario, right?
right, lack of sharing.
Yeah.
Just kind of grasping and taking.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they grasp at the fish and they take it away.
I had an eagle. We have eagles here in Alaska. I was out fishing in a little boat. It wasn't our big boat. It was our little boat. We were on a lake, and I had a trout, and I was pulling it in, and an eagle got it from me. Darn you, eagle!
I mean, it's in its nature.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, Here's another one. Here's an interesting one. What about the virus
So what is the
as a
virus?
shadow?
As a shadow.
That's worldwide. We don't even have to go into specific countries about that. We could just look at that is everyone's shadow animal right now, basically, or shadow projection, right?
Sure.
A lot of fear, lot of denial, a lot of accusations about misinformation and disinformation. Where's it coming from?
Right. Deceit, a lot of deceit in that, because we started covering our faces and wearing literal masks as a result.
Yeah. What's not being said? What don't we want you to say? Right. But another side of that, and I do talk about that in my shadow animal book. Another side of it is maybe that's also a directive to speak less and listen more. So there's positive and negatives about everything, really. And I guess my answer is if we can take that all in, because we all kind of are that shadow and that bright, and the main message of my book is integration and learning to integrate in a healthy, balanced way so that we are more expansive and we have more availability to our own inner wisdom. And we don't have to rely on them, whoever they are, the government, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, whatever, and they're not all bad, right?
Yeah.
You break your leg, you kind of want a doctor.
Sure.
Maybe you want some good drugs too, because
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about your tarot deck? And I know you modeled it after the Rider-Waite, but
I use the Rider-Waite as my as kind of my just because I grew up on that and I knew what the cards meant in terms of that, and I've been reading for a long time. So I wanted to use animals to look at the different to represent the different cards. So it was a huge fun thing to do. Here's one of my favorites. One is the zero card, the trickster. It's
the coyote.
Yeah. I just love coyotes. And I just had a lot of fun with the different animals. You just sit. What I would do is I would sit with that card as I knew it from Rider-Waite. And I have a lot of other decks too. So I'm pulling on other wisdom from other decks and other symbols and stuff. And I would ask, what animal is closest to representing this, or what animal would like to be the architect for this card. And almost always an animal would come right away and I would know. And then sometimes it wasn't, sometimes I'd go like, and it would be later when I'm kind of researching and putting things together, putting the pieces together, that I would understand why that animal was there and how it represented that card and emanated that card. Yeah.
What do you think the coyote represents for as a shadow animal? Because I know coyotes take out a lot of people's their familiars. They eat cats and dogs pretty prolifically.
Coyote's a quintessential trickster. It really is. And I think the way Native Americans talk about coyote is very to how coyote really is. It's a trickster. It can it's always kind of watching. There's a sneakiness there, but there's also a like within Native American myths, for example, and there's so many different tribes that have different myths, but coyote is the one that pokes at you and wants you to see your shadow, really, and bring up those things that are maybe not ego aggrandizing, and to look at ways in which you're pompous or arrogant or whatever it is, and to laugh at it. I love coyote because there's a lot of humor, I think, in coyote and the coyote spirit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then to sort of connect that to Anubis and jackals and stuff in Egypt, do you feel like there's similar energies? And then the whole connection of the Anubis as the gatekeeper of the dead. What's that
As
about?
the gatekeeper, I think tricksters are often gatekeepers, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, and we could bring in fox and
Japanese
I think
tradition,
that is
fox.
all. Excuse me?
In the Japanese tradition, the fox is the kitsune.
The kitsune, right. I talk about that in my book. Yeah. That was really, I had never heard of that before, so that was fascinating for me to read about that. And I think all of those are related. They all have their own flavors. They all have their own kind of little stories going. But yeah, they're all related in that way. They're all similar in that energy. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that would be an interesting deck with Anubis as the trickster, huh? Or the Anubis is the 0 card.
All
I
right,
kind
a
of like
jackal.
that. Yeah, I kind of like that.
Can you give us a few more examples? I got to get your deck soon. It sounds
Sure. Let's see here. What's your favorite card?
I like the moon and the sun cards.
The Moon and the Sun card. Let's see here what I.
And let's see,
Well,
I'm
here's one of my favorite, which is, do you number 15?
the devil's card.
Yeah, and I did goat, and I called it Shadow God of Liberation. And so I had my designer do half chain, because we can be chained to our addictions or our desires, and half flowers. So in the
Garland,
sense,
yeah.
the Indian kind of East Indian, way of with death is this blooming of. I was thinking of that one saint in particular. I can't remember, but he was put in a coffin, and when they opened the coffin, all that was left, all that was there was flowers. So
Oh,
there's this sense of liberation that we can use our shadow. Our shadow can chain us, can keep us, just like the devil can keep us in, or it can be what allows us to open and allows us freedom. Yeah.
I
So
think
I
that's
like.
one of the premises of Dante's Inferno, right? He gets to see hell, and he eventually gets towards freedom by understanding that journey.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Uh,
I
my
did. Let's.
my partner was just in a mood. It was about something trivial today, and she put on the song as she was driving. Uh, goats, or it's sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell, and I think that's Cake. You ever heard that song?
I haven't, but you know what that has to do with that old Bible story, right?
No, tell me.
Yeah, well, there's a yeah,
What?
yeah. When you get to go look at my book on my chapter on goats later on, and you'll see the picture. And it's an old kind of iconography of the sheep being more obedient, right? And
Mm,
and Jesus is like the giving the blessings to the sheep, but the goats, the independent ones, the naughty ones,
right.
they go in the other place, right? So yeah, so it's steeped in legend. Yeah, that whole sheep goat dichotomy there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. What's number 18? Now I've worked with these cards for so long that sometimes I forget the Rider
Is that
Waite.
the moon? That's the moon, right?
Yeah, so I have
The rabbit.
Rabbit as the moon dreamer. Yeah, because there is something about rabbits. It's very magical and very connected to the moon, huh?
Hmm.
And I think I can't remember which culture it is. Maybe the French. Instead of seeing a man in the moon, they see a rabbit in the moon.
The Toltecs, in the tradition of Nagualissimo and dreaming shamanism that I belong to, if we want to communicate with the moon spirit, it's easier for us to invoke the rabbit because it is the pet of the spirit of the moon.
Oh wow! So see, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's that story, cute little kid story, Love You to the Moon and Back, and it's two rabbits talking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just do one more. We have number 10. Is that the Wheel of Life? Number 10. No, that's
Yeah.
not the wheel.
Well, it's the wheel, yeah.
The wheel. So what do you think I did there?
Oh, I don't know.
Fire, the sacred spinner. Yeah.
Oh, good call.
Yeah. With
There's a
cat
cat in
walking
there
around.
too.
Yeah. You know.
The Sphinx cat. It looks like a Sphinx cat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. My designer put that in there, and I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. That fits. Yeah. So yeah, it was really fun working with this woman. She's a Ukrainian woman. This was long, long ago before we had the whole Ukraine issue. And she didn't speak English very well. I didn't speak Ukrainian. And so the way we communicated was, I think, telepathically, basically, because I would send her kind of like the energy of what I was looking for. And then she would come up with something, and we would go back and forth. And it was really a cool process. Yeah.
Hmm. So you designed the cards and she did the art?
Yeah. She did the artwork. Yeah.
And what's her
Yeah.
name? Mention her name.
Ola Leola
Okay.
is living in Germany right now. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that she's safe.
Yeah.
So, the polar bears are dying, right? I heard about this. Is this true? You live in Alaska, maybe you would know.
Well, I mean,
They're making it seem like they're starving, at least in
yeah,
some
I think
videos.
some are, and you see photos, and I think some are, and I think polar bears are very adaptable. When I connect with the animal spirit of polar bear, um, I sort of get the feeling like if it's not going to work out here, it'll work out somewhere else. They're very matter of fact, you know,
Hmm.
and I I think that's the feeling of a lot of animals these days. Are like, you know, if it's going to work out here, it's really down to the surface people, the humans. What are you going to do? How are you going to be? It's not so much what are you going to do, what laws are you going to make, that kind of thing. It's who are you going to be, right? Who are you going to bring up? That's really another reason why I wrote this book, because I think that we really need to look at all this stuff that we've repressed for so long. Because, you know, we're in shadow country right now, aren't we? With the way things are going in the world, it's just crazy. I mean, it's every day I say to my husband, we're in crazy town. I mean, you know, you just,
Yeah, and
if
it's
you can
one thing
stand to
after
look at the
another.
news, right?
If it's not a war on consciousness, then it's a war on your health, then it's a war in the real world, or I don't know, the meta stuff. I'm starting to really question whether or
So I
not
think a
my
lot of this,
dreams are
yeah, a lot
pure.
of this is about reclaiming our power, reclaiming our own wisdom, you know, and I think we do that by walking through our fear rather than just accepting what's told out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, trusting ourselves as the animal instinct. Because we're animals with minds.
I think it's trusting our deeper wisdom is what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, trusting our what we know. And the way we find out what we know is by looking at all those things we don't want to look at and clearing them. You know, by retrieving your shadow, you actually start lightening up because you don't have that long bag you drive, you know, pull behind you anymore. It lightens up, right? And you become a lighter person, more joyful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm imagining a body bag, by the way.
Yeah. So it is, you know?
Famous story about people who happen to have an externalization of a spirit animal. The Golden Compass series. Have you read it? Heard of
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Phil Pullman, right? Yeah,
If you read all of it, and there's the big polar bear scenes in there too.
yeah, yeah.
If you read all the way through that, they get to go to the underworld, and they can't go there unless they meet their actual shadow. And in the book, it's called their death. And so their death is like a shadow person. It's like, hi, I'm your death, and I've been hiding your whole life out of sight. But you want to go to
Uh,
the underworld? We have to go together.
uh,
And it's really interesting how like that
yeah,
author did all of
yeah.
that.
I read those books a while ago. Now you're making me want to read them again because I love his writing and those were great books. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sign of the times because there's a lot of interdimensional speak right now, and that book is about our dimension overlaying into the next one.
yeah, yeah. I think that's so true.
So, Dawn, what do you have going
Yes.
on? How can people check out your abilities and your teachings?
Yeah, my website is animalvoices.net. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. There's chapter excerpts from all my books. A lot of times there's just full chapters. So if you want to read a little bit about it beforehand, I do animal communication talks and I do tarot readings
Okay,
sometimes when time allows. Yeah.
yeah, and you seem like you're really into your home life and fishing. Is that what you
Into what?
occupy and fishing, right? Getting trout or salmon or something?
I do love fishing. Yeah, I really do.
So
Yeah.
you're living, and this is interesting. As I've reached out to you, and I've reached out to other authors who are very shamanic people, and they're like taking these really long sabbaticals to get to the interview. They're not really that engaged in the career lifestyle. They're just engaged in life and living.
Yeah.
And in your old bio, you talked about your daughter and having a family and stuff like that. How is
Yeah.
your family? How's family life up there?
It's good. My daughter lives nearby. She has her own house and she's living her best life and yeah, it's great. And I am like that. I think, you know, my publisher would love me to be a little bit more on marketing, but my passion is writing and doing dream work and doing animal talks and and tarot readings and things like that, and being in nature and having enough time to just kind of chill and go deep within, work with dreams. So yeah, that's we all need to follow our passion, don't we?
Yep. So most people can buy all of your published goods on your
Yeah.
website.
Yeah, well, or through my website, yeah, at my publisher, at Amazon, at a lot of the books are on Kindle if you like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exciting. And any words of parting wisdom, because we're going to wrap it up here.
Oh yeah, we've been talking for a while, haven't we? No, I don't have anything specific other than, if you are interested, my website is animalvoices.net, and I've enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, Shadow Animals is out already, right?
It's coming out. Well, I have a copy.
I got a copy.
And you do. You have a read copy. I think technically it's coming out November 8th. So very soon. You can pre-order and get a lower price if you at Amazon, for example.
Sure. So that people can order also on Inner Traditions, Bear and Company.
Yes. Yeah, Inner Traditions is my publisher. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and they were working very diligently to help me be a reader more than a viewer.
Oh, good.
And they send me lots of stuff, and they're kind of like quiet sponsors of the show.
Oh, that's nice. It's an excellent publishing company. I really lucked out. I've done a lot of books with them. Yeah.
I really appreciate the things that they're sharing with the world through their publishing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dawn.
Yes. It was a good time.
I'm going to do an outro, and then we'll say bye-bye.
Okay.
EntheoRadio is brought to you by our sponsor, mushroomshaman.com and mushroomshaman.shop. You can also find products formulated by myself, and I've been a tenured herbalist and mycologist. You can find also Ormus-based products, gold, ALKEMI.gold, ALKEMI.gold. And find us on social media. You can find EntheoRadio anywhere that you want to look. I think most of the podcast hosting places will share our show. We've got old episodes from blogtalkradio.com, and you can check us out on iTunes and a bunch of other places. Spotify has us. And yeah, thanks for listening. This is your captain, Hugh T Alkemi, and Dawn signing out. Bye.
Bye-bye.